We're going to talk about something just a little bit different today. And by a little bit different, I mean something I've already talked about. But it's something I feel like needs to be covered in a little bit more detail than just what I've kind of hinted at before in my Q&As and my other conversations. You see, it has to do with tonality. Now, I talk about this a lot. Bonus fact about me, our guy, okay? I'm a total loser, alright? And I mean this kind of sincerely, because here's the thing, right? Ever since I was very young, I can remember this back to when I was 11. One of the things I liked to do was to pay attention. Admittedly, I kind of owe this partially to my mom, because she really grilled into me when I was young. Pay attention. That was like her biggest lesson to me. Pay attention. And the whole point, which I understand now, being slightly older, was to constantly be thinking about everything, right? It's kind of why I am the way I am in many ways. Because I do. And I want to stress, I'm not saying this for hyperbole or dramatic effect. I really do think about everything I do. These movements I'm making right now are all calculated. None of this is natural, because if I'm natural, well, this is how this works. Now, this is funny that I bring this up because this is related to this topic, so forgive me for segueing for just a second. But for example, if you look at an actual picture, this came up recently with regards to video games. If you look at an actual picture of some place in real life, and then you look at a picture that's been doctored or generated or otherwise, the picture that's been doctored is going to look way prettier, way better, right? But that's showmanship in a nutshell. That's why I do this thing. That's why I try to present myself in this way. In other words, this is going to sound really weird, but I am faking it to be honest. Because in my perspective, I actually do feel the enthusiasm that I'm trying to express, but I don't express it naturally. You follow me? And I feel like I'm not the only one who is this way, and that's one of the things we try to get across. We're not lying, per se. We're not trying to deceive you. Granted, this is only some cases, but you get the point. It's more like I am trying to get across a point. In my case, my point is I've already talked about it. Video games are awesome, and let's discuss, right? But if I were to just sit here naturally... Whoop, what's going on over there? Okay, nothing. If I were to just sit here and be natural about it, well, I'd be very boring, to put it simply. I'd just be sitting here talking. My tone probably wouldn't change or vary at all, because that's sort of thing I kind of have to force myself to do. You see where I'm going with this? I am faking it to be honest. I am thinking about all these little movements and gestures and tonalities in order to get across the point that I actually feel, but would not come across naturally. Now, what does this have to do with anything? Because I find myself wondering how many other people are in this exact same boat as I am. I don't really think I'm the exception here. I'm sure most people are like this. Fun fact, when I was in the airport recently, as I was visiting some family, I was doing something that I always do, but it kind of caught my attention because I was already thinking about the matter. You look at someone and yes, I'm getting back to the point now. You look at someone and you look at their body movement, okay? And I'm talking about large scale, you know, how they're talking, how they're walking, how they're doing, whatever, right? But also the way their eyes move, the way the expression that they're making, because there's so many muscles and so many things they could do with their face. You know, that sort of thing. Whether or not they're using their tone low or high or trying to grade it across, you know, all these things are basically communication, deliberately or otherwise, that people are doing all the time. And I usually do that sort of thing, I analyze that sort of thing, for lack of a better way to call it, in order to try and pay attention, in order to try and determine what it is you're saying for real, and what it is you're thinking, what it is you're feeling. Now, what does this have to do with today's topic? Because I've kind of gone over here with this one. My point I'm trying to get across here is that, and this isn't just true in English, but it is especially true in English, how you say something is like 80% of your communication, in my opinion. And the other 20% could be divvied up by the actual words you're saying. And even that isn't still just the plain communication, isn't just the words. You still have the word choice, what type of words you use, and how you utilize those words speak a lot about you and your mindset, right? I mean, you could analyze the heck out of me and the way I talk and the way I do things and the fact that my cat is trying to claw at my chair over there, and you could understand a great deal about me just because of how I communicate, and not so much what I communicate. You understand? To give a demonstration, an apt demonstration here, I've talked before, I actually studied Shakespeare back in school, and I hated it. I'm just going to be blunt about it. Did not care for Shakespeare. I'm not going to say anything bad about him. Just my opinion, not my thing. So I don't actually remember, most of the things except for the Horatio speech. That's the one I had to perform like 50 times. The only one I still remember. But there's a speech I really wanted to get across because I feel like this is a good one to get across my point. Everything you do while you're saying something communicates as much, if not more, than what you're saying, okay? We're going to do 3 readings of this, alright? This is from King Lear. I hesitate to label these because I'm really not that good of an actor, but the first one's just going to be a reading. Pure, mundane, reading words on a paper. Second one is going to be what I call overacting. I'm just going to call it that. The third one's going to be how I think I would actually act this if you sat down and say, alright, Arsh, say these lines, okay? And I hope that this will get my point across, okay? Blow winds and crack your cheeks, rage blow. Your cataracts and hurricanes spout till you have drenched our steeples, drowned the cocks. Yes, I know this is 2 separate lines, shut up. I tax not you elements, with unkindness. I never gave you kingdom, called you children, you owe me no subscription. Just the words on the paper, right? As if you were actually reading them yourself. Although that's actually another topic we're not going to get into because, the internal reading voice thing. Let's not get into that. Blow, winds, and crack your cheeks! Blow and rage, you cataracts and hurricanes! Spout till you have drenched our staples and drowned the cocks! I tax you, not you, you elements with unkindness. I never gave you kingdom, called you children. You owe me no subscription. I didn't really mean to go into Kafka there. I'm just trying to make a point here, okay? Blow, winds, and crack your cheeks. Rage, blow. You cataracts and hurricanes. Spout until you have drenched our steeples and drowned the cocks. I tax not you elements, with unkindness. I never gave you kingdom, called you children. You owe me no subscription. Now, I know that was terrible, but I hope I illustrated my point rather accurately. If I didn't, I could use the standby, which is a much less dramatic explanation, but I'm going to go ahead and do it, just to really make sure I'm hammering this point in as hard as I can here, okay? And never punch like this, by the way. This is a terrible way to punch. If you're actually going to do the twist thing as you're punching, okay? Yeah, I actually took boxing lessons once upon a time. Let's move on. I took karate, too, and judo. Probably wouldn't know it from me nowadays. Oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me? Excuse me? I think that's probably the simplest and most effective way I can get across my point right there. 4 different utilizations of the same words, completely different meaning from all 4. Now again, this isn't unique to English, but I feel that English is the language that most utilizes non-word based communication in its usage, because it can mean the same words can mean so many things, and so many things can be interpreted differently, and that's kind of where I'm going with this whole thing. You've probably been wondering, what does this have to do with anything other than writing, obviously. I used Shakespeare as my initial example because I believe that is probably the most common example of what I'm talking about. I know it's not really what most people consider geek culture, but as I've said before, I believe a geek is just someone who is genuinely enthusiastic about whatever. Doesn't matter what. Could be, cars. It could be gardening. It doesn't really matter. We're all geeks in our own little way. There's nothing wrong with that. Some of us are nerds. There's something wrong with that, but let's just get into that. No, seriously though. Point I'm trying to make here is that For anybody out there who has done Shakespearean acting, you know exactly what I'm about to tell you. I did it myself a great deal back when I was kind of doing the acting circuit, debating if that was what I wanted to do as a career. Which is funny because I'm really not a good actor. But the point is that any given Shakespearean production you're going to do, it comes down to whether or what the director's interpretation of that particular Shakespearean work is, because we don't actually have like a baseline. And in general, it is possible for you to see 3 or 4 or 8 different presentations of the exact same play that come across completely different in tone and style and overall presentation because of the director's different interpretations. Now, in general, I do want to segue this into something else. So let's actually leave that aside for a moment. There we go. The point I'm trying to make here is that this is true for everything. This is one of the reasons there is such a what most people refer to as an argumentative environment, what some people refer to as a toxic environment when it comes to geek culture. Because when you look at Star Trek, you see something different than I do. And that's just fact. There is literally fact here, provable fact in this matter. When you look at Star Wars, when you look at Mario, let's just look around my room right now, okay? When you look at Final Fantasy, and when you look at Pokemon, that's not something I want to talk about. When you look at Paper Mario, I already said Mario. When you look at Legend of Zelda over there, because I've got the Master Sword, you know, that's a great prop. I should have brought this out for this one. Hang on. It's not really a prop, it actually is a sword, as I've talked about before. I love this sucker. This is a birthday gift. But my point I'm trying to get across here is that we all see something different. Now, how different that is going to vary significantly, but the point is that it is different, right? Wrong, because that's not the point at all. This is the point right here, and I'm going to no. The point is, it's not a bad thing that what we see is different. I talked about this before with regards to my Mass Effect videos. One of the biggest themes I felt, and again this is even kind of metaing itself, about Mass Effect was uniting because of, and indeed in spite of, our differences. Not being torn apart by them. We don't have to be the same to work together. In fact, I would say that homogenization takes away from what we are as people. Opinion, obviously, but an opinion I hold very strongly, and I could point to a lot of evidence if I really wanted to make an argument of it, which I don't. I want to wave my sword around. It's so rare I actually get to pull this thing out. I need to get back in practice. The weight of this isn't really quite such that I can do it, because the balance should be right here, but it's actually right about, oh my, way up here. Look at where this balance is at. Hang on, almost there. You get the point. I'm segueing. Sorry. It's been an interesting day. The point I'm trying to make, really, is that if you look at something and say, that's not Star Trek, and let's say you even do it in the same kind of way I do. For example, I looked at Star Trek 2009 and I said, that's Star Trek, because I felt like it kept true to what I feel Star Trek is, you know, character focus and character growth, if I were to summarize it in 2 words, or 2 bullet points. If you looked at that and said that wasn't Star Trek, that doesn't make your opinion any less valid than mine, but you and I can still discuss this and still debate it. And this is especially important, if you and I both enjoyed the same movie, we can still talk about it like civilized adults, even though we completely disagree with each other on why. And if you didn't like the movie but I did, or vice versa, we can still discuss it like civilized adults. I know I feel like I'm retreading ground here, but I really want to talk about this because this has been something that's been on my mind a lot lately. One of the big reasons why, well, I'll just be blunt about it, because I can't get away from it, is Mass Effect 3, okay? Someone who shall not be named left me a message about someone who did this big ol' analysis about people who didn't get the Mass Effect 3 ending. And I'm not going to go into the details of that because I don't want to promote someone else who I disagree with so violently. I'm just kidding. The real point is I don't want to drag this out any longer than I already am. The summary was that it was an artistic attempt that I didn't get, okay? And I was actually mentioned specifically amongst the people who didn't get it. I disagree with that violently, and I could argue provably, but I don't really feel like proving it because, again, I don't want this video to drag on too long, even though I spent some time playing with my sword. Don't read into that. Point being, that's the kind of person I like to avoid. I'll just put it bluntly. Because I met several people who enjoyed Mass Effect 3 and the ending, and they told me why, and we talked about it, and it was fine. And that is basically what I'm about in a nutshell right there. I may spit vitriol at Mass Effect 3, but if you liked it, I have absolutely no right in the world to say that you are wrong for liking it. And, being the kind of person I am, I have absolutely no problem saying that's great! Because it means you have something else that brings you joy in your life. And that's awesome. And that sort of shared enthusiasm is what I'm trying to make this whole video about in a nutshell. I think that's what I'm going to title this video, Shared Enthusiasm. Doesn't matter what it's about. What matters is we both agree that enthusiasm is awesome. Video games are awesome. I talked before about genres and about how ludicrous it is to call something video games that can contain so many different types of things. Or maybe I haven't done that video yet. My memory's not great. Just bear with me here. But the point is, I use that term specifically, the incredibly generic genre term there of video games, to define video games are awesome because all video games can be equally awesome depending on your interpretation. I may say FF6 is the greatest game of all time, and I do. But you may say that you hate FF6 and you love, let me think of a game I hate, Duke Nukem Forever. I know, that's kind of a cheap shot. Let's go with something else. Okay, I know this is a controversial choice, so I'll go ahead and say it. Chrono Cross. You love Chrono Cross. I hate Chrono Cross. I love FF6. You hate FF6. Just bear with me, because my point here is that just because of our violent disagreements on these things, we can both still share in our shared enthusiasm. You see where I'm going with this? You and I still find something enjoyable about this. Now, we could talk about this and debate it and deliberate, but I have no right to be angry at you for anything you do or say on this matter, because it's just my opinion too. You follow? Now, that can, of course, go too far the other way, and I don't want to make this a discussion about the people who use opinion as a defense when they don't actually mean opinion. Let's not get into that. That's a whole other thing, and it has to do with that twit whose name I can't even think of the name of. That's how much I don't care about her. Point being, you and I, whoever you are watching this video right now, have this shared enthusiasm. That kind of cut a little. We have this shared enthusiasm. We do. I love Legend of Zelda. I love it so much. Even in my half-dead stupor when I got this sword, I was like, awesome. I've got my own Master Sword. It's, you know, it's not the best one in the world, but this is wood and a bit of plastic for the detailing and actual metal. This is great. You may hate Legend of Zelda. You may think, oh my god, they keep remaking the same game every time and they never do anything with it and it's dumb and stupid, boring, horrible. And I can only applaud that because I believe in my heart that there is something else out there that brings you that same joy that this brings me. And that is my point. In a nutshell, that no matter how we interpret stuff or why or what we interpret it as, the shared commonality is not that we all think it's A or B or C. We are not homogenized. We're people. And I think that's awesome.